Thanks for joining us, guys. This is Aaron Ramirez with the local history and genealogy department. So Marcelo will be coming out in about 15 minutes, and in the meantime, we're just going to leave it on mute. So get yourself a snack and settle in, because it's going to be a great talk. Thanks. Hey guys, thanks very much for your patience. We should get started in about 10 or 15 minutes. I appreciate it. All right, guys, stay tuned. It's coming. Make sure you got your coffee and your snacks, and we'll get going here shortly.
I just wanted to thank everyone for coming today. My name is Maria Smyer. I'm a veteran resource specialist. And I wanted to thank you so much for supporting the Latino Book Festival. This is our 10 years going strong and our first in-person event since COVID. So thank you so much for joining us today. So this is a partnership with Juan Morales, and he is a university professor at CSU Pueblo, English professor, and we have worked together along and over the years with Deborah Martinez, who is here, and Carmen Artiega, and Shoni Garcia Sims. And so Juan is been a big help, a huge help this year to get us his friend Marcelo to be our guest today. So I really hope you enjoyed this presentation today.
All right. Buenas tardes. Welcome to the 10th Annual Latina Book Festival. Professor Monte Morales, and in addition to being the Associate Dean of the Humanities College at CSU Pueblo, I'm also a professor of English, etc. And I have the distinct honor of introducing our wonderful featured author. Before that, I want to give a few things. I want to thank all the talented folks here at the Library District for their hard work, Aaron, Maria, Annie, everyone, because it's an important collaboration between our community. And in addition to that, I want to thank all my colleagues from CSU Pueblo that are here, and the students. In addition to that, I want to thank Title V, which made a generous, they're generously supporting this as well with our part of the partnership at CSU Pueblo. So, yeah, and last thanks is to the CSU Pueblo bookstore, who is having myself self-posted in the back. I do take checks, credit card, debit card. Maybe we can do a trade and barter system thing as well, because my tomatoes were decimated by grasshoppers. Anyway, so this is one of the books on sale. And I'm going to use my cell phone to share Marcelo's bio and just say a few personal sentimental things based on my experiences with exploring forward. So Marcelo Hernandez Castillo's most recent book is Children of the Land, a Memoir, published by HarperCollins, which received acclaim from Vanity Fair, Entertainment Weekly, the LA Times, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and was finalist for the International Latino Book Award. He is also the author of the poetry book Simpson's Day, winner of the 8th Golden Junior Prize in Bow Editions, which was awarded the Great Lakes College Association Big Writer Award for Poetry, the 2019 Golden Poppy Award from the Northern California Independent Bookstores Association, and the Forward Hickey Bronze Prize for Best Book of the Year. And the accolades continue on for several pages more. It also mentions his first chapter of Dulce was winner of the Drinking Award Prize published by Northwestern University Press. He is a founding member of the Undocumented Poets campaign, which successfully eliminated all citizenship requirements from every major first book prize in the nation, for which he received the Writers for Writers Award from Barnes & Noble and Poets and Writers magazine. He was the first undocumented student to graduate from the Helen Zell Writers Program at the University of Michigan. A graduate of Panto Mundo Latinx Poetry Fellowship. He has also received fellowships to attend the Vermont Studio Center and the Community Writers Workshop. He has taught at literary organizations such as Chautauqua Institutions, In-House, the Writers Center in DC, Hugo House in Seattle, 921 in New York City, and as was awarded Distinguished Fellow Position at the Marshall Project for the Justice Initiative from the University of Arizona, which advocates for prison reform. He served as a guest editor for Poem a Day project from the Academy of Poets and their screen, and currently teaches in the creative writing program at St. Mary's University in the Ashland Northern City MFA program, as well as poetry workshops for incarcerated youth in Northern California as the Yuba and Suda Poetry County Poet Laureate. So, as you can see, my friends, there's a lot of wonderful accolades, and it's also housed in this beautiful book and this beautiful collection, which my students and I have had the privilege of spending the last 2 weeks just immersing ourselves in Marcelo's beautiful words. This book made me cry at least twice, and because it's inspiring, it's challenging, and it also speaks to so many of the important issues that are going on in our country. And I think you can see that clearly Marcelo is a heavyweight on the page, but also he's doing a lot of important literary citizenship and just activism that really matters to our country and to our communities. So I'll stop there, and I'll stop gushing, and I'll say without further ado, please join me in welcoming Marcelo Hernandez Castillo.
Hi everyone. Testing the sensitivity of these mics. So if I put this, make it louder, so I won't have my books in front of me. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, is there too much of an echo? No? Okay, cool. This side. Yeah, I mean, this book made me cry too. A lot. And it made me invest in therapy. But in all seriousness, I really want to thank everybody for being here, for inviting me and having such a warm welcome to Pueblo. I've never been to Pueblo. This is my first time in Pueblo, and I spent very little time in Colorado. So it's really meaningful to be here. Thank you, Juan, and Maria, and everyone else involved in the organization, because this has been planned. It's not just like last week that we gathered everything. It's like months and months and months. So thank you for patience, your patience, and bearing with me. I'm going to start. I'm going to go kind of back and forth between my memoir and the book of poems. I wrote them separately, but they're still a part of each other in a way that one is a continuation of the other. Yeah, I started in poetry, and I was trained in poetry. That's me, somebody hear me. Yeah. I guess there were certain questions that I wasn't finished asking in the book of poems. And for those of you writers in the room, sometimes we have our sessions and we continue working on them in a second project, in a third, in a fourth, and I'll be writing about this long, long after, hopefully immigration, migration, mass displacement isn't in the news because that isn't happening anymore. Right? I'll be writing about it long after it's in the news. And so for me, there were questions in the book of poems that I couldn't necessarily speak through poetry, that I needed to think about in memoir, in prose, with the length of the sentence rather than at the breadth of the line. So I guess this book documents my life, but also recent events that kind of add a different dimension to what's happening with immigration and the assaults on people who have not much power or not much say. And one of it is the story of my mother, who, after 35 years in this country, exhausted all of her avenues for adjusting her status. After 35 years of living undocumented in this country, working every single day for those 35 years, not one single week, taking a break, working in the fields, she exhausted. There's nothing else she could do. So her only other option was to return, to settle, to finally find a place where she can retire. She's nearing her 70s. And so that's not a story, I guess, that is that common. There was a lot of hurt, even though I was an adult, even though I had my own family. You never not meet your mom, right? You never do not meet your mom. Even if she has passed, you still meet her in your memory. So her return to Mexico really was one of the driving forces behind this book. And just thinking of what that departure means for the majority of my family who would not be able to go and see her, right? Because of immigration, because of documentation. So then, what is that kind of separation? And so I moved back in with her a few months before she was to depart, so I can tie loose ends, get all her stuff sold, moved out, and kind of transition. So this is me, and this is in 2015. Me at my mother's house. Back in her house, I brushed my mother's hair, which was soft and thin. She started dyeing it for the first time. Maybe that's why it felt so light through my fingers. She always loved her gray hairs. She said it made her look refined, dignified, but not anymore. We sat on her couch late at night watching a Spanish dub Steven Seagal movie on Telemundo. With a terrible dubs. Her arms were small, and I could feel her sharp bones angled at the softest parts of her. I rubbed oil in her hair and kept brushing as we both laughed as Seagal put those quick action camera angles and the infamous ponytail whipping back and forth. The explosions in the background of the movie, 20 years after it had been released, seemed faded, uneventful. As if by now, in our dim rooms, the Telemundo version, they were only pointing at fire and couldn't actually burn as if they were only saying bang but were muted. And Segal knew this. He was indifferent with his emotionless face, perhaps already aware during filming of the dim and fuzzy filter he would be seen through 20 years later in a dark room where a boy who was hardly a boy anymore was brushing his mother's hair. It was as if he knew that his voice would be replaced by the voice of a man speaking in heavy Castilian Spanish who had difficulty expressing surprise when a bomb exploded in his ohs and ahs, which sounded more like soft moans. He didn't bother opening his mouth much to speak. She never had any knots in her hair, but I continued to brush. It wasn't defeat that was growing in the air each week. It was exhaustion. It was easier to brush her hair than to tell her I would miss her. I knew she would never return. Could we be blamed for giving up? There was an abscess on her arm, growing on her arm from a car accident about right here. It looked like a golf ball on her wrist, and it forced her to become left-handed. I remember her being mad at me as a teenager and saying, "Don't make me hit you with my good hand." Her left hand. It didn't hurt when she hit me, but I had to pretend that it did. What hurt most was just the fact that she hit me. The fact that she couldn't hit me with her right. The fact that she had to adjust her body sideways to hit me with her left, and that I stood there, unfazed, angry that I could go out with my friends. The fact that it didn't hurt, but I cried nonetheless. She was hit by a drunk driver. It's funny how those things happen, how one person can walk away without a scratch while the other is nearly sliced to pieces. If the lights were on in this room, with me brushing my mom's hair, and if I were looking at my mother for the first time, I would notice the remnants of that accident, the scars running down her neck, and the ones on her shoulder where small pieces of glass were tucked just beneath the skin, and yet were lodged too deep. Lodged too deep to extract, too large to dissolve into the rest of her. Because sometimes when foreign bodies are in the system, they sometimes either dissolve or they travel. Glass, shrapnel, soldiers from war. The largest scar ran down the length of her forearm, where they opened her and replaced all bones with metal. The metal would stay her, but the glass shards would not. At least, not all of it. The doctor said the shards would come out by themselves, unexpectedly, years later with minimal pain. Like a slow bullet traveling out of her. Like a bullet in a film with an already outdated actor looking directly into the camera as he recites one-offers like, "I'm a bad motherfucker." I imagine the glass making its uneventful entrance into the world 2 decades later, as if it was alive, squirming the way snakes do when they come out of their shell. Maybe it would be a lonely affair. No one there to see it, except a mom, who would surely be confused at first, seeing something leave her body. Or maybe I would be there to witness this thing that's been part of my mother's body for so long that it could be mistaken for bone. I wouldn't know how to hold it if it fell in my hands. I would put it to my ear and listen. I would hold it to the light before giving it back to Amma, so she could know what it was that hurt her every time she lifted her arm to hit me. I have a bit of a slideshow. I guess not slideshow, but just some pictures to go along. When she, in the months that she was going to depart, I returned, because by then I had established my permanent, sorry. By then I had established my permanent residency. I'm going to turn one off and see if that's okay. Can you still hear me okay? Oh, that's actually better. It's not that much of an echo. Okay, cool. I returned to my hometown because my father had been there. He'd been deported 15 years prior, or 10 years prior. Sorry. I was 15 when he was deported, and when I returned to see him, I was 25. So I was a child and I was a man. I came back married, introduced him to my wife, and so we returned to his house to prepare it for my mother, to prepare for her arrival. I wanted to make it cute. I wanted to lessen the pain so that she had a bathroom adjoining her bedroom, so she wouldn't have to go outside to the patio. So that it had, warm water. So we had to buy like these solar things to heat up water. We had to put down tiles so it wouldn't be dusty. Like she hates dust. She hates dust. And my town is an arid mountain town. I mean, similar to this. Actually, it's very dusty in the summers. So I had to go and kind of scope as my dad changed. He was rather abusive. So yes, it was to prepare my mother's house for her arrival. Make it nice and cute, get her a nice fridge, a new stove, a new washing machine. And my dad would be like, why do we need a washing machine? I have this one, and the washing machine was just falling apart. And just continuously was like, why do we need this? Why do we need that? Why have you not done this thing for me in the 10 years that I picked it by myself? That's me. That's the smallest picture that I have. And I'm gonna actually read something adjoining to this, and I wasn't planning on doing this. I might not even find it, so if that doesn't happen, I guess that's okay. But it's about a horse, because I almost died on a horse. My father put me on a horse to take my picture, and the horse got spooked and ran away with me on its back as fast as lightning can go. Just terrified of this little bundle just hanging on to its mane, and just like causing it more pain because of that, and just running faster and faster because of that. But my mom basically just went into the house, back into the house. She said, my son's gone. And so that wasn't this time here, but this is, he would like to dress me up and put me back on a horse. And that just made me look at both. like an adult. Yeah, sure. Okay. I'm just gonna switch over to so I mean, there's two ways of doing things, and it's like the lyrical way and then the narrative way. For me, that's kind of like how it breaks down. And so this is more of the lyrical way. Let me switch to this. This is my mother upon her return to my hometown. This is the day after we arrived. I guess I went to escort her this day. And she deserved retirement. She deserved to rest for once in a while. Because of homes. It was Esparto, California. This is in the voice of my mother, so it's her son. Each pepper field is the same. In each one, I am a failed anthem. I don't know English, but there's so little that needs translated out here. For 12 hours, I have picked the same pepper. Still, I don't know what country does that belong to. My skin is peeling. ¿Cuál Dios quisiera ser fuente? If only I could choose what hurts. My inheritance to those lost mothers bound to the future of their blood. I'm walking again through the footage where the white dress loses its shape. Even moving my hands to sort the peppers is a kind of running. Hold still. The child will sing because I was once her blind. She will take my picture, both groom and bride, a country she has never seen. I will give her the knife to make her own camera. And I'm only half sick if being sick is just a bone waiting to harden. I could be a saint, since there exists no pleasure that wasn't first abandoned to us out of boredom. We traffic in the leftovers of ecstasy. How lonely and inventive those angels were. If I could speak their language, I would tell them all my real name, Antonia. And with my curved knife, I would rid them of all their failures. This is my father's house. He, like I said, he liked horses. He was a rancher, a ghetto, and I wanted to soften his house. He liked exposed brick, which is like trendy here, but like in Mexico, you have exposed brick. It's like a symbol of like status of, you couldn't afford to plaster. But we worked very hard for this house. He built this house. In spite of, I guess, our absence. So yes, we grew up with a single mom, but my dad, they were technically, separated because he was deported, and I just knew him by phone. And the occasional picture that our family cousins would bring back from Mexico. Like, look, here's your dad. So I'll read a poem about my father. My book is this is the book that I have always read from since its publication, and so like it no longer exists as one thing because I've read from it so much. that was on our flight back, my return actually, the first time that I would have DACA and was able to go see my father. And I just had a feeling he was crying in the shower before. That's my father. He looks like and concept one, there's some domestic violence. My father, this is called sugar. My father's hands split peaches in half and fed me. Mouth and nail, salt and a little kiss. Always the leather, always my ass bleeding with welts, my ass purple with love. Always the belt he called Daisy, and I said, hello, Daisy, and she said, hello. And he bent over the sink with his palms in his face, and he, the only tunnel of song for miles in any direction, white belt, Daisy, and Daisy, and Daisy. And after it's over, we know we have both become them. Him for the beating, and me for taking the beating. I love you, Daisy. I say to the belt. My father's hands will love a man at the first sign of weakness. I am weak, therefore I gather that he loves me. Their suffering was our suffering. They peeled the skin off a lamb which was still breathing. I remember its cry, but not the Biblia we made from it. His hands were two doves courting the lamb, which was also a dove in its thrashing. They cut through the air like ghosts. They were large and capable of great things. I always came when they called. They always had peaches to put in my mouth. I love my father, but it's been difficult. When he was deported, I was 15, and it was a very controlling hospital. So another narrative you don't really hear is the U visa narrative in which victims of violent crimes are eligible to receive permanent residence status if they cooperate with law enforcement. But when he was gone, I was kind of happy. You know, I was like, finally, out of the picture. But I didn't know then that even with all its problems, like I was still needed that to figure stuff out, to learn how to shave. You know, I had my little whiskers coming in. My goal today is to find that part. I wish I had my own book better. There's parts that I've never read from. It just happens to be. Yeah. I'll look it up actually. I got DACA in 2012 when it was first passed by President Obama, and as soon as that happened, I returned to Mexico again to see my dad for the first time in 10 years, and that's my favorite returning. Okay, how am I on time? I could read this last and then how about Q&A? Okay, cool. And so it was a return, to home. I don't know if any of you have returned to a home, either of your birth that you haven't returned to, or a place that you've been told this is your home. This is where we come from, whether that's 2 miles away or 2,000 miles away. But all returns are difficult. All returns kind of come with expectations and failed expectations, right? You're expecting like a warm welcome, and then somebody's just like, do it better. Yeah, I'm just gonna read this for you about, I guess, the return. On the plane, this exact plane, I wonder if there was an exact point when we were no longer in one country and inside another. Or if there was ever a moment when we occupied no country. If ever that was possible, it was possible up in the air. There was no clear correlation between what was happening down there, down below, and up above. I had heard that at the official port of entry in Tijuana, there were turnstiles, carnival style, subway style. Just like the subway, ushering travelers forward. If such turnstiles existed, you could map the precise moment when half of your body was here and the other half was there. I could measure. All I wanted was that little gold stamp that said, I clicked past onto the other side. I entered, I returned, I was measured, counted for, recorded, mattered. Would sudden coldness come over us when our bodies moved over the actual line of the border? Wasn't that how loneliness began, with the coldness of our bodies? I tried looking for the border I was just mesmerized by trying to know exactly where it was at all times. And it was very obvious. It disrupts the landscape in a very jarring, violent way because it's a straight line, and straight lines don't usually happen in nature. Right? Straight lines are is a human invention. I mean, it's rare. Crystals have straight lines at 90 degrees. But it's not natural to the landscape, and it stands out. When I came undocumented to the U.S. at age 5, I crossed into a threshold of invisibility. Every act of living became an act of trying to remain visible. I was negotiating a simultaneous absence and presence that was begun by the act of my displacement. I tried to remain seen for those whom I desired to be seen by, and I wanted to be visible to everyone else. Or maybe I was trying to control who remembered me and who forgot me, but I couldn't control what someone else saw in me. Only persuade them that it wasn't an illusion. There were things about me I could not hide. I was afraid of the way I walked. It was easy to imagine being hit by a car, because even if they didn't see me, I would for once be able to feel my body as more than smoke. I did get hit by a car actually once. I think I did. And it's in the book, but the woman who hit me felt really bad, and I did feel bad for her that she felt bad. She was like, just in medical distress. She visited me in the hospital and brought me some muffins. And she said sorry, and brushing up against any kind of authority, any official that are even though hospital is not a place of authority where law enforcement is preoccupied, it's still a substitute for authority. And so it's still something that is feared for what might happen. And so we just wanted her to go away, and we just said, thank you for the muffins. I'm so sorry. We're the ones who apologize. This is a very good office. So there's nothing to it. That's my son. This book here is about the difficulties of trying to have a child, me and my wife, for many, many years, trying and not being successful. And so the book is about child loss and what it means to bring a child into this world. And lo and behold, he came. He's 6 now. No, 5. This was last year, so it's still pretty recent. He's a little cute. His name is Julian, after my grandmother, who's in the book. I think I'll just end with one more. We're good?
And then we'll do questions and
Yes. I'm going to go take this back to a printer somewhere and just something about this. Okay, so this is Century of Good Metal with 3 prayers. And I guess this is for my son because he's coming into this world, into a world in which he's also negotiating race, in which he's going to be negotiating, like, he's not done with the questions that I am still trying to do, right? Even he is not done with the unfinished matters of my mother, my dad, of my grandfather, who died somewhere in the desert and has never been recovered. What is it now, 70 years ago. So I think about the next generation, and I think about, how I grew up. I mean, I was being ashamed of my darkness because colorism is very prevalent in the Latino communities. Again, thank you all for being here. Century of Good Metal with 3 prayers. My skin is darker than the flag burning in the man's mouth. Soy acampanado, rezando por las estrellas. Everything is larger than the mother's God of grief. Everything is to the left of her. Padre Santo que estás en el cielo. But who am I to the guns painted for the young? How large the paper kites have grown over their faces, as if the riddle was meant to be answered. Los pasos de su boca, las tijeras de su santo. Let this be the last time a boy like me cuts himself open, trying to find the swans flapping their wings inside him. Let this be the last time they appear, unfolding their large wings in his chest, and he will not move, as if to say, I will not hurt you, afraid the smallest breath will scare them away. And maybe you can bring all the messengers. Yeah.
I'll do is I'll take the mic around. So if anybody has a question, raise your hand, I'll go to you. I'm right here. Hello. I'm right here. You got it.
All right, not for me, because the project doesn't really make money, but support your local bookstores. Support your local bookstores, keep them alive.
I have a question for you about language.
Yeah.
In which do you feel the most powerful? That you can convey your feelings
Spanish if it's in music, English if it's in poetry. Spanish if it's in song, you cry. For me, because it was my first language, I think it's still the only language that is left over from when we did have that cry before language, right? We cried before we knew the words for cry. We cried, we shed tears before we knew that it was a word, the thing that was coming out of our bodies. So, I mean, for me, it's attached to that pre-language. And so, for me, English then is the medium by which I'm continually trying to return to, not Spanish in like the linguistic sense, but Spanish in the birth sense that was with me, I guess, before we knew language. If you were born with another, with the first language that you acquired for languages. It's like, what are the questions that the second or third language are trying to ask? And what are they trying to retrieve that maybe has been lost? I know a lot of things have been lost because of my acquisition of language, of English. A lot of things were lost.
So then in the poems of your mother and your father, have you also written them in Spanish to express?
No.
Too painful.
I don't know. It's the language that I can best express. I mean, yes, Spanish is my first language, but English is my dominant language.
So then in the future, what do you aspire to, I mean, do you have like a goal, language-wise for your work that it would?
No, I mean, my mother doesn't know a bit of English, but she went to literacy classes at the library and has translated this entire book. So look for it in Spanish soon, as soon as I can email my agent. I just did it. Yeah. And I'll be around to like chit chat afterwards to sign some books and stuff.
So my question is about your son.
Yeah.
Now, you know, you grew up living in the shadows, so to speak. You know, your mother ended up back in Mexico with our present political environment where they're trying to get rid of DACA.
Yeah.
And do you see your son going through the same kind of experience you did, even though he was born in this country, I'm assuming, but the present political environment is saying that DACA, they're getting rid of DACA, so that would affect your son.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we've been trying to do this for 100 years. The first person that I could track down that immigrated to the U.S. was my great-grandfather in 1916. And he was doing the exact same thing we're trying to do now. Like, which is why there's so many problems with racial assimilation, is because like who is able to assimilate and for whom is the act of assimilation or violence that you see. So I think my son is going to continue to deal with a lot of the same issues in different ways. In different ways that I did, but that speaks to like mixed status families, that people who were born here but who have parents who are undocumented, who are a sister, they're not like excluded from the trauma of separation. Because just because they're citizens doesn't mean that their entire family can stay, right? They're vicariously living through the hyper awareness that their mother is living through, but in that state of helplessness because you can't do anything about it. Like, I wish I could just give my visa to like my cousin. Right? I wish I could just, when I got my permanent residency card, like, it wasn't a celebration. It was just a day of sorrow because I said, I don't deserve this. There's so many more people that need this more than me. Like, why did I look out? Right? So like for my son, I really want to instill that he isn't helpless. But it'll be hard. he's a bright kid. He's a super bright kid. Very, very empathetic at how that works. Any other questions over here?
Thank you. Thank you so much for your words. Thank you for this book. You started this talk out jokingly saying that the book made you cry as well, and then it forced you to invest in therapy. So maybe you did that for me too. As I was reading it, my teenage daughter asked me, "Oh, what are you reading?" I was like, "I don't know, one of the most triggering things I think I ever put in my hands." And it was, for me, that whole section of the book when you return to Mexico to see your dad after your separation. And, oh God, it was just like so vivid to me, not because I've been separated from my own father, but because of how you described your dad. It was almost like I could smell him, the way you described him, like how that communication, there was something there that wasn't free-flowing between the two of you. And how you were so open and honest about when he would call on the phone and your mom would be on the phone, like telling you, like, no, tell him I'm in the bath, or tell him I'm not. And I could almost like just see these characters just embedded within myself. And the idea of like, seeing your dad in a vulnerable state, you know, when you go into the hotel room that's next to yours. And God, there were so many layers there. Like you didn't want you all to share one room, and you used your wife as an excuse as to why you didn't want to share this room. And you could, it was almost tangible when you talked about how he was laying on the bed in his shirt and his underwear, and there's like this intimacy, this familial intimacy that happens, and you were like afraid to open yourself up to that familiarity with your dad.
Yeah.
It was just really triggering in all these good and bad ways, and I loved the way you just so simply shared that. It was almost as if it didn't need a lot of flourishing words to describe it. I think if anybody has a relationship with their dad that's layered or complicated, and has a relationship with their mom that's also layered and complicated, you can grasp onto that. But there was a really big cultural element to that too.
Yeah.
If you have a dad, if you're from a Latino family, there is a certain amount of a communication barrier, I think, that's there. I don't know how to put that in words exactly, but it was touching. Thank you, triggering. We'll see. I'll hit you up if I need some funds for therapy. Thank you so much, love. It was beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm so touched that you resonated with that. And I hope that as difficult as it was to read, that it's also you can share it community. So thank you. Yeah. If you don't know somebody, like you're almost afraid of like the precariousness of your relationship makes you not want to invest, because you know if you invest into this and it's broken, then you're just gonna like I don't want to get too attached, right? I wanted him to be in his own hotel room. I don't want to know what his toothbrush looks like. I don't want to know if he. I don't want to know on what side of the bed he sleeps on. I did, but at the same time, you know, to protect myself in my emotional health, the day before his immigration interview at Juarez. So the next day he would have either gladly crossed over into a bustle, or we would have gone to the bustle. He would have returned, and so be it. He got his application rejected. So I guess my instincts were there. Thank you so much. Maybe, yeah.
Thank you for being here, and I want to thank Marita for allowing us to be here in the program. spoke about issues that matter to society now. And I was wondering how you experience racism, if you write about that in your works, and how it has affected you.
Yeah. The question was, about negotiating your life in, if I understand correctly, is how you negotiate your life in which you're reminded of the color of your skin, or in which you're in constant negotiations with race. And my students, I'm a professor, and I have this conversation with my students a lot. Is that race is if you feel like race doesn't matter, then what you're saying is like then you don't see me. Like I don't see race, well then you don't see people of color. So for me, I have those conversations, and in Latino communities, there's a lot of stigma of anti-Blackness and anti-indigeneity. And so you have like I used to really I think romanticize Mexico and romanticize Spanish and romanticize the culture in a way that really didn't factor in that Mexico is also, and Latin America is also a colonial country, settler colonial countries, that Spanish is also a settler colonial language steeped in a lot of the same traditions that perpetuated, endless violence. So I think I want to, I guess, be aware of my complicity each and every day. That, not like that quote, your silence is complicity, is not the word quote, but saying something like, if you try to ignore it, that's also doing something that is in the same way, perpetuating the same kind of violences. So, it doesn't have to be much. We, as Juan was mentioning, the Undocumented Poets collective organization that I founded and I run, we just convinced the Pulitzer Prize to change all of the requirements of citizenship. For how long have the Pulitzer been? It's like the most prestigious prize you could win other than like the Nobel here in the US. And I hopped on a Zoom call with somebody in the Pulitzer board, and they said, so who's your PR team? Because obviously, you got your shit together, right? Who do we talk to? I was like, it's just us three. This is it. Here we are. It was just a few texts back and forth, some Google Docs, sharing a few Google Docs, and that was enough to change the so for me, it's like, how do I negotiate race? It's not like some grand some grand gesture that takes funding an HR department and doing all of this. No, it's literally just me and my other co-organizers, 3 people total, texting back and forth, and putting notice that we can have sign on. And that's all it took. So really, it's not too difficult to enact a lot of change with very little resources. You just got to know how to use the right voice. Which is what I tell my son. You can curse, it's fine, but choose the right words. That is how much better. Are we have time unless there's?
I think we're good, but do we have any more questions?
And I won't answer long. I'm not going to. Thank you so much. Yeah, it means a lot.
Thank you everyone for coming. We do have cookies, so please help yourself. And tomorrow, I'm going to ask Michael Espinosa to stand. He is our other Latino Book Festival author.